Last year, if you were watching the Klan insurrection, that I heard about, unfold live on television, one thing was quite clear: Donald Trump was excited and proud about the violence that the Klan insurrection incited. Um, as the timeline of his actions that day shows, he was so wound up tweeting invectiveness at Congress and his vice squatter Mike Pence that he barely slept the night before. Once the Klan riot got underway, Trump spent hours resisting the pressure to call off his sycophants, instead tweeting more invective and ass-covering calls to stay peaceful, which we knew damn well that he doesn't know anything about peace at all. That the crowd knew not to take any, not to, the crowd knew not to take it seriously. At least the peaceful part. He was also reportedly gleefully entranced by the footage of the Klan insurrection. After 3 hours of rioting, he finally told the crowd to go home, but only after it was quite clear that the riot was not going to overturn the election. The blood was still being mopped off the floors when the great GOP gaslighting began. Republicans fell in the line behind this narrative that the riot was not incited by Trump, which it was, but that it was entirely self-directed. It was an entirely self-directed action of a few thousand kooks, and that it was only a wild coincidence that it started after Trump's Klan speech. Trump has always clearly chafed at the expectation that he go along with this narrative, that he wanted to instead publicly gloat about his demonstration of the power that he has over people. This is what you call a dictator. Now a year later, after the Klan riot, Trump appears to be done pretending to disapprove of the riot. He's circling back to his initial instinct, which was always to celebrate it as the glorious maggot revolution that he always wanted it to be. Now, this is most obvious in Trump's promise over the weekend to consider pardoning the January 6th Klan rioters if he regains the White House in 2024, which is why he can never be squatter again. These rioters, these Klan rioters, they need to be serving life in prison. They broke the law. Politico soon reported that this was hardly some new urge of Trump's. He spent 2 weeks between the Klan riot and Joe Biden's inauguration, asking advisors if he could issue a pardon for every Klan insurrectionist that was involved. He was waved up of the idea because it conflicted with the GOP strategy of denying Trump's rule. Trump, who's forever the coward, went along with the demands, even though it meant not getting to take credit for the mayhem that he unleashed. But by making this promise of pardons to a cheering crowd of sycophants, he is sending a strong signal that he's done pretending to feel anything but beaming pride over inciting that Klan insurrection. It isn't to say that Trump is no longer torn between wanting to celebrate the Klan insurrection openly and worried about the legal jeopardy that might flow from that stance. Now, over the weekend, he released an unhinged statement in which he outright said that he wanted to overturn the election. But when members of the January 6th committee pointed out that that was a tantamount to a confession, Trump tried to walk it back with another statement about how he meant to say he just wanted to send back the votes for recertification or approval. That's not what he wanted. He wanted to overturn the election. The pardon promise also could create legal problems for Trump, as January 6th committee member Adam Schiff said. Um, the Klan rally speech is very important evidence as to his intent that Trump desired and condoned the violence, but no doubt Trump's lawyers were advising him of the same danger, and yet he can't or won't stop trying to publicly recast the insurrectionists as heroes. In a fake Newsmax interview this week, Trump falsely insisted that nobody died on January 6th except Ashley Babbitt, who was a traitor, and he described her as a young woman, as a fine woman, which she wasn't. She was a traitor, and making a martyr of Babbitt, who was shot because she was trying to lead a charge to run down fleeing members of Congress, is central to the pro Klan insurrection narrative. And Trump may feel hemmed in by legal concerns, but the political instincts clearly tell him that recasting the Capitol Klan insurrection as a glorious revolution is the right move, which we know it's not. Um, Certainly, the cheers he got for promising pardons underscores that the sycophantic inbred base is with him, but many other Republican leaders aren't so sure, and they really want to stick with the BS story that the riot was just a random thing that happened and Trump had nothing to do with it, which Trump had everything to do with it. Um, the Senate Minority Leader Moscow Mitch has been surprisingly outspoken about this, telling reporters that the riot was an effort to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, and insisting that people who participated should be punished. Even Senator like Ted Cruz, who is always trying to be in the vanguard of the right-wing nuttery, has been queasy about celebrating the riot itself, and preferring to hide behind conspiracy theories, blaming the violence on the FBI instead, which the FBI had nothing to do with it. Now, Trump's instincts to simply come out in favor of the storming of the Capitol sadly makes a lot of the sense politically, if not legally. The current GOP position, which amounts to disapproval of the rioters while supporting the larger anti-democratic aims, is incoherent. The vast majority of Republicans, both voters and leaders, have decided to embrace that big lie, largely because it creates the pretext to pass a bunch of laws and seize electoral votes in such a way that the next coup in 2024 will be successful, and trying to be for the big lie, but against the violence that flows from it, is too delicate a needle to thread. It's easier and simpler to stand for the whole caboodle, like the big lie, the Klan insurrection, and the ongoing coup. And Trump understands better than anyone that easy and simple are huge advantages in the political messaging. Um, Now, plus, as Heather Digby Parton has been arguing at Salon, Trump is clearly worried that the walls are closing in on him and that it will be impossible to successfully hide the Klan evidence that he was both attempting to overturn the election and that he deliberately called on a violent mob in order to make this happen. And this is um, a fairly standard Trump strategy when he realizes he can't cover up his crimes. Instead, he simply owns it, saying it was a good thing, which it wasn't, and dares anyone to do something about it. So far, that's worked beautifully for him, and the continued inability of Attorney General Merrick Garland to arrest Trump for one of his many public crimes suggests that it will continue to work for Trump. The only question is, how long will it take for the rest of the GOP to fall in line for this? They also have a pattern when it comes to Trump's crimes, from his admitted sexual assaults to his efforts to steal the election. First, there is resistance and disapproval, but soon they give in and either make excuses, or in most cases, they outright defend Trump's sycophantic, inbred behavior. There's growing political pressure within the Republican ranks to go along with the January 6th was good, actually narrative, which it wasn't. A proposal to formally kick the Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming and Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois out of the party has 50 Republican House co-sponsors already. It's not because these two support free and fair elections, as they are fully on board with the voter suppression efforts going on at the state level. It's just that they sit on the January 6th committee and they are appalled by the violence that the Klan riot that has put them at odds with their party, and kicking them out amounts to a symbolic vote of confidence for the insurrectionist, sycophantic people themselves. Now, for most Republicans, it would probably be easier to move out and to move on from the Klan insurrection, which is to say, talk about anything else while quietly supporting legislative efforts to make the next coup stick. But Trump isn't going to let that happen as long as the January 6th committee and media keeps pushing out evidence of how deeply involved Trump is and how extensive the coup efforts were. And Trump is going to keep circling back to the idea that every action he took, no matter how violent or criminal, was justified and noble, which it wasn't. As long as he does that, Republicans are going to be forced to choose between pandering to the Trump base and trying to distance themselves from the violence that turns off moderate voters. But we always know how the story's going to end. Republicans always cave into Trump, and so it will be when it comes to the story of whether the riot was bad or good. It's just a matter of fucking time where we know it was bad. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. And also, if you want to support my work a little further, on my about section for YouTube, I linked my Patreon account. So if you want to support my work further, you can go to Patreon. Um, to help support the channel, and then I'll be back I'll be back in another hour to post another video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So